Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Key of Threes stream. It is NBA All Star discussion night tonight. The team's starters and reserves all at once this year will be announced Monday night, I believe. I don't know when. I assume at halftime of the nationally televised games is typically when that happens, but Monday night is All Star naming night. And so no better time than tonight before our stream on Tuesday for us to give our predictions for the All Star team. Now, I am a one man crew tonight, so it is only going to be my predictions. And typically, I am going to run my predictions as what I would choose, not what I expect the results to be as a result of the voting and from what the coaches choose. So that is what we will go ahead with. I'll get into a brief discussion of some of the new format as well for the All-Star game this year, as the format has changed again. But we'll get into that, and then we'll discuss our All-Star picks based on those new changes. But indeed, solo stream tonight, but we do appreciate the support in chat. Still going to be a good one. Probably a little bit shorter tonight, just due to the fact that we are a one-man crew, but should still be a very good time. We do appreciate all the support. Do be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe if you do enjoy. And let's get into it, man. Let's discuss NBA All-Star tonight. We'll get into the predictions, and then on Tuesday, we'll be able to come back with some of our thoughts on the teams that actually get named. Of course, there'll be some injury replacements in there down the line, but let's just get into what we're dealing with in terms of a format this year. So, positionless this year. There is no regard for positions in the starting lineup or on the bench. So none of this, two guards, three forwards, and then a couple of wild card spots on the bench that I know has been maybe not futile, but at least debatable in the past few years, where there's been much better guards that have been left off some all-star teams compared to some of the forwards that had to get included, and it was a lot easier to make it as a forward. Uh, None of that anymore. Starting lineup could be five guards. That may or may not be foreshadowing to what my Eastern Conference is looking like, but it could be five guards. Again, and when you consider the voting, that's probably not going to be the case. A guy like Giannis is obviously going to be a starter thanks to the voting, but I'm not caring about the voting. I am going with what I feel I would do myself. I don't care about the voting. I don't care what the coaches are doing as far as the reserves. This is going to be my picks, not a predictions necessarily. But we're fully positionless this year for the first time in terms of all-star selections, which is fun. I like just the top 12 guys in each conference getting in, regardless of position. So that'll be a new tweak this year. And then, of course, the main change as far as how the actual event is going to go on All Star Weekend is that there will be two American teams and one international or world team. Now, of course, if the initial selection of the 24 All Stars this year don't exactly align to 16 Americans and 8 international guys, which I haven't done the math on it, but I very well might not. I mean, there's going to be a fair bit of international guys, so I don't know if they're going to have 16 Americans, but we'll see. But nonetheless, that's how that breakdown is going to go. It's going to be a round robin tournament of 12-minute games between those three teams. I don't know, man. It's different. The All Star Weekend gimmick, the, the product is just never great. Ultimately, however, getting to debate and talk about who's going to be an All Star, who's deserving of it, who missed out, that's arguably the best part of All-Star Weekend for me at this point. And so that's what we're here to do tonight, man. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to start out in the Eastern Conference, the conference that undoubtedly has less talent. I mean, it's just where the balance of the conferences are right now, but there was still some very difficult decisions for me to make out East. I'm still not sold on my last guy or two, but I think I've finally got it locked down. But there's still some very talented players out East to decide between. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's get into the starting lineup first and foremost. Now, these aren't necessarily in any particular order, but I will try and save my most debatable selection in a certain grouping until last. So, in the starting lineup for me, Jaylen Brown undoubtedly has to be there this year. The Celtics are, a top 2 seed as of today now, as of passing the Knicks in the last day or so. So they have to have an all-star. Jaylen Brown is obviously going to be that guy. He's having a career year this year on career high volume, certainly, but he's still been very good. He's been a large reason as to why the Celtics have been as good as they are, even without Jason Tatum, even with some of the moves they made this offseason to get off of some money. So undoubtedly, Jaylen Brown is going to be a starter this year. Another one that was a no-doubter for me is Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson, of course, being the best player and having another very good year in a new system on a top 3 seed now in the East and the New York Knicks. So no question there, Brunson was going to be a starter. Cade Cunningham is also a starter for me as well. He's had a great season in Detroit, and they're the 1 seed in large thanks to that. So those 3 were certainly no doubters with regards to being all top 3 seeds in the East, all their best players on their respective teams, and all having some of the best years of their career. And certainly in the case of Cade and Jaylen Brown, a much stronger argument that it is certainly the best season in their career and are very deserving of starting in the All-Star game. Note, given Cade is, a big point guard, but we have 2 point guards and a wing so far. There was then 3 players I was debating between my last 2 starter spots, those being Giannis, as most would expect, given the voting and given, his performance at an MVP caliber level. Donovan Mitchell, who, although on a very much struggling Cavs team this year, has been very good himself, trying to carry the load offensively for that team. And Tyrese Maxey, who, shot out of the gate playing at a near MVP level, has tailed off a little bit, but honestly not that much, and has kept the 76ers afloat as a top 5 seed as things stand currently in the East. And ultimately, Maxey and Mitchell have just played a lot more than Giannis has. Giannis has not been overly available. He had a couple of stints out injured. His team is the one below 500 compared to the Cavs, who are 23-19 in the 7 seed, and Philly, who are in the 5 seed. And that ultimately does matter with all-star selections to an extent. I don't necessarily value it as much as the coaches sometimes do, but I can't go out here and, give significant all-star credibility to bad teams. Otherwise, I could say the Clippers could have 2 all-stars between Harden and Kawhi, even though they're below 500 and not in the plan. So it's a tough argument to make when you are on a weaker team. That does sometimes make it harder to have success going into all-star selections. So at this point, I left Giannis off the starting lineup, which I know won't happen in real life because the voting will get him in from the fans. I don't care about the voting. I would like to see Donovan Mitchell and Tyrese Maxey in the starting lineup. They have earned it over Giannis this season with their extra team success that they've been a large part in bringing, and largely due to the fact that they were more available. If Giannis was just as available as those guys, I don't know if Milwaukee would be quite in the same conversation. I think, that's a 6-7 game difference that I don't know that they'd be able to make up, but it would certainly be a lot closer. It would certainly be a lot more of a debate. And although Giannis has still been playing at a near or at an MVP caliber level this season when healthy, he has missed a fair bit of time. And ultimately, he has played a fair bit less than those other 2. Giannis at this point has played 27 games of the Milwaukee Bucks is 17-24. So they've played about 41 games, 41, I believe. So he's missed, not an insignificant amount of games, about 14 games. So it's certainly, that was the biggest impact I had on that one. Tyrese Maxey has played 37, and he's still averaging over 30 a game. So he's been playing at an absurd level. And then Donovan Mitchell in his own right has also been absurd. He's also been very available. He's played 38 games, and he's at 29.7. So they're all scoring at elite levels. Obviously, Giannis's defensive impact is where he makes that leap, but they've been available. They've both played over 10 more games than Giannis has this year. Teams are better, and that is going to get them the starting nod over Giannis. Now that brings us to, I'm going to start with my first 4 guys on the reserves for the East. These 4 were, I don't know if I want to say locks outside of Giannis, who we now know obviously is going to be amongst these guys on the bench, but they were much less in debate for me than the next 3 that will be named when compared to some of the other guys that I end up leaving off of the list. So Giannis is, of course, one of them. There's no way, even with some of that missed time, he's still certainly played enough. He's played over half of his team's games. He's been great still again this season. There's no way I don't include Giannis. After that, Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes has been terrific this season. The three-point shot, although it's tailed off a little bit recently, has been improved. The passing, the playmaking, the vision remains great. He's taken a bit of a step up again defensively this year, not having to do as much on ball offensively, not having to self-create as much with BI there full-time now this year. That's been a very, very big benefit for the Raptors, and that was what I was most looking forward to with BI, is that Scotty now can just, obviously he still carries an offensive load and he's around a 20-point per game scorer, but he can really just prioritize the defensive end and hone in on that. And he has been elite there. I would argue he should be one of the top few candidates for DPOI this year. He should certainly make an all defensive team. And that, alongside his playmaking, his rebounding, 100% deserving of an all-star appearance this year, which I believe is his second, if I'm not mistaken. I think he had one a couple of years ago. I should. I'm a Raptors fan. Yeah. A couple of years ago, he had one. So, yeah, certainly deserving for him now this year. In a similar light, Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson is certainly deserving of his first All-Star appearance this year. And, it's been kind of a weird season for Atlanta. They had high expectations coming into this year. They were, by many, expected to be a top 4, top 5 seed in the East, with Porzingis in, with Trae Young back, with Okongwu getting to step up, hopefully, with Nickeil Alexander-Walker being weirdly kind of the marquee signing of the summer, and he's been great for them. But Jalen Johnson really took a next step to the next level, partly due to the injury of Trae Young, his playmaking, his vision, although not necessarily as good as what the counting stats and the assists may say, has certainly been a lot better. His threat in transition, in terms of his passing and his vision, is certainly where he gets a lot of that production, and that has been extremely valuable. This is a very high pace, high fast break production team, and Jalen Johnson's been a big part of that. The three-point shot's still been solid, not amazing, but solid, and his ability to get downhill, get to the rim, get to the line, it's been very good. The mid-range shot has been solid. The defense, it's not as good as it was last year. There's moments where it's still good, and it'll have very good defensive moments, but there are also times where he just isn't really competing on the defensive end. But given the offensive load he's had to take in Atlanta this year, it's understandable. It certainly makes a lot of sense. So I think we're in a place where Jalen Johnson has more than earned his spot as an all-star. He's had a great breakout season, and I'm very happy, as a big fan of his, to give him an all-star nod. We're kind of just going to keep tracking down the conference here, because I'm not exactly typically super confident about giving someone an all-star appearance on an 11-27 team. But given the injuries that have been occurring in the Eastern Conference this year and talent that has been in the Eastern Conference this season, Michael Porter Jr. has to be an all-star this year. He just has to be. Absolute career year for him in Brooklyn. Absolute explosion. I mean, his previous career high was 19 points per game in his second full season in Denver. He's at 25.7 this year, and the efficiency has not fallen off. I mean, it's down a little bit from last year and up a little bit from 2 years ago. It's been spectacular. Even though the volume's increased, the difficulty of shots has increased. His playmaking and his passing and his vision, sure, it's still not great, but it's certainly a lot better than it was in his time in Denver. He's at a career high 3.3 assists per game this year, his previous career high being 2.1 last year. He's been great. He is, outside of Brooklyn's defense being really good in December and really bad outside of that, he's been the thing that has carried their offense alongside the playmaking leap from Nicholas Claxton. But MPJ, brilliant season for him. Elite shooter who has really, really figured it out as the number one option in Brooklyn, and is certainly deserving of his first All-Star appearance. So that is our top 9. That gives us 2 first-time All-Stars in Jalen Johnson and Michael Porter Jr. Scotty getting to make his second, getting back in, and Cade also getting his second as well. So a lot of new faces and a couple of first-time appearances already, and we're not even in to the last 3 spots. This is where things got very difficult for me. I'm looking at some guys that are maybe looking at like their first, second all-star appearance, guys that are in the middle of the conference or guys that are playing well on really bad teams, but not quite as good as someone like MPJ, or guys that have had good seasons but have missed time. It's a fun combination. So some of those guys include Franz Wagner, who I think if he didn't get injured, and he's now back, thankfully, as he just played with his brother and Tristan da Silva in their home country's game in Berlin the other day, which was nice to see that he was be able to be back for that. But uh, Franz, if he had not missed time, would have been the easy one all-star pick on Orlando, with Paolo, of course, missing time and probably not being the better of the two of them this season so far. But that made that a tough pick to do anything with Orlando or Franz Wagner, but he was certainly still in consideration. Brandon Ingram was certainly in consideration as well. He's had a solid, not amazing, but solid season so far in Toronto. His scoring production has been pretty solid. The 3-point shot has been fine for him. But it's not breathtaking numbers, and it would give the Raptors 2 All-Stars. Not that, giving the 4th seed in the conference 2 All-Stars is something you can't do, but and no one has 2 All-Stars yet of the starting 9 guys. It's tough to give a second one to Toronto. In the case of someone like Karl Anthony Towns, that's somewhere where you could make the argument of the Knicks certainly getting a second All-Star, given they're a top 3 seed. But Cat's had a weird season. He started poorly, then he kind of picked it up a little bit, especially from 3 through the middle bit of this season up till now. But over the last couple of weeks, where the Knicks have kind of faltered and have fallen down to that 3 seed, Cat's not been amazing either. He's had a couple of really good games in there, but he's also had quite a few stinkers in there. And of course, we know of the defensive struggles that he has had and continues to have, potentially more so now than ever right now in New York. So he was certainly in consideration. Jalen Duren also in consideration. I mean, the 1 seed in the conference and the Pistons is always going to be the team that's most likely to potentially get a second All-Star just based off of their standings. If someone else is playing well enough, Jalen Duren, I would argue, has been good enough in terms of the leap he's taken this year. The scoring has really improved. His ability to take guys off the dribble, his ability to finish inside, finish through contact, and defensively. Much, much improved this year defensively. The rim protection, the discipline in terms of not getting into so many fouls. He's been very good this year and certainly had an argument for these spots. Evan Mobley, he's been decent again, but the offensive efficiency hasn't been great. The defense has been good, but pretty hard to give the Cavaliers to, given where their season's at right now. So tough to consider Mobley, but was in the mix. Joel Embiid is another guy that was considered, but missed a lot of time. And although he's been better since those first couple of games where he looked really poor, um, the defensive impact just isn't what it was, given where his athleticism is at right now. So again, a considered guy, but was tough to include Embiid. And then 2 other guys that I had to consider, former Raptors in Norman Powell, who's had a very good year for Miami. Very outside consideration in the West last year with the Clippers, but now in the Eastern Conference, slightly easier to get in and having a better year in Miami. Norman Powell certainly had to get consideration, and Pascal Siakam as well. Pacers have been very bad. Siakam has not been the reason for that. He's been like the one guy on that team that has been available for the entire season. Pretty much everyone else has had at least some level of a significant injury. Siakam played 40 games this season, and no one else is anywhere near that on the Pacers right now. He's averaging over 23 a night, nearly 7 boards, 4 assists. He's been great. His defensive impact hasn't really dropped either. He's still competing on that end, which is impressive for a team that's this bad when Siakam has only been around winning his entire career. So he had to get considered, even though the Pacers are as bad as they are, and sit 15th in the league or 15th in the conference and 30th in the league. So there was a lot of guys to consider here for the East. It was really tough to narrow it down to just a final 3. The first pick, give me Siakam. I didn't really care enough, as sometimes as some of the coaches do, about the Pacers record. The Pacers record is not indicative of what Pascal Siakam has done. This is not a matter of Siakam's counting stats are good, but his impact on winning is bad, and so the Pacers are bad. That's not the case here. Siakam has proven his impact on winning is very good. He's done it in Toronto when winning a chip. He did it last year in Indiana, in getting to the finals and getting to a Game 7. So he's certainly proven that, and nothing in his play this year has indicated otherwise. He's still kept up that high level of compete, that high level of defense. So despite the Pacers record, Pascal Siakam, I am giving back-to-back All-Star appearances here, and what would ultimately be his fourth All-Star appearance. So quietly, Siakam kind of building up a bit of a Hall of Fame campaign. I don't know if he's going to be there, but 4 All-Stars, if he gets in this year, 2 All-NBA appearances and a chip with an MIP and an Eastern Conference Finals MVP last year, I don't know if he's going to get in. You know, he's almost 32. He's still got some time, but something to consider as we go forward here. It's an interesting consideration for Siakam. The next option that we then selected was Norman Powell. The Miami Heat have still been solid this year. You know, they had that really hot start where the offense was really clicking. The offense has really not clicked as much since in more recent times. Since Tyler Hero came back, oddly, they've had a little bit of some issues kind of figuring out what they're doing on the offensive end at times. But Norman Powell has been their guy. He is their number one guy on the team this year, especially on the offensive end. I believe he's at over 23. He's at 23.9 per night. The efficiency has been amazing. The three-point shooting has been elite. And we've seen flashes of this. I mean, we saw it in Toronto for a little bit before he got dealt. We saw it for a little bit in Portland. And obviously, we saw it a little bit last year in LA, just a lot more in an off ball role. I think the on ball creation, his ability to hit pull ups in mid range and pull ups from 3 has looked even better this year. He's been elite. He has absolutely been elite. And I'd be happy to see Norman Powell finally make an all-star game. Probably the only one he gets, unless scenarios really shape up for him again. But very happy and very deserving to see Norman Powell get an all-star appearance. And I think he should get one. This is one that I think that my predictions would agree that Norman Powell also gets it, not just my opinion. And so that leaves us with one spot. And I think if I'm predicting, I think this is Karl Anthony Towns. I'm not predicting. And quite frankly, I don't think Karl Anthony Towns deserves to be an all-star this year. I just don't. He has not been good enough to his standards. He has not produced enough on the offensive end to make up for the fact that his defense is terrible. And so I'm going for a team that is above them in the standings, that has a center who I believe has been just as good, if not better, this season, and that is Jalen Duren. Duren has taken such a step forward on both ends this year, and the Pistons are the 1 seed. And if I am going to double up on teams for any of these all-star picks, which I haven't yet to this point, which is rare to only double up on one team, but I think that double up is going to be on the Pistons. It's going to be on the 1 seed, and Jalen Duren is going to get the final spot on the Eastern Conference All-Stars, at least as far as my selections go. So it would make for a very interesting dynamic of size between the starting lineup and the bench here. The starting lineup for my picks would be Tyrese Maxey, Jaylen Brown, Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, and Cade Cunningham. So 5 guards. JB is probably the center. Cade is the 4. Donovan's the 3. And then Brunson and Maxey in the backcourt. I mean, you know, not that any of those guys are truly playing down low offensively, but you get the idea. It's a guard-heavy lineup, which, hey, if they get going from 3 in the All-Star game, it could be interesting, but they're not exactly going to be doing anything crazy on the lob front. But then off of the bench, their smallest player would be Norman Powell, followed up by like Jalen Johnson. It would be a bench of Giannis, Jalen Johnson, Scotty Barnes, Michael Porter Jr., Pascal Siakam, Jalen Duren, and Norman Powell. So that is 2 bigs in Giannis and Duren, some big wings in Jalen Johnson, Scotty Barnes, MPJ, and Siakam, and then Norman Powell, man. So the East could have a very interesting set of dynamics of size on this team. Obviously, the real team come all-star announcements next Monday is likely to have Giannis in the starting lineup. But in my world, I would love to see this from a performance perspective and just to see what the hell these lineups look like, man. Not to say that they're keeping that 5-man guard lineup out there for long, but I would just love to see that even on an all-star game. But nonetheless, that is at least my 12 Eastern Conference NBA All-Stars for 2026. But let's move along to the Western Conference, man. The Western Conference, as it kind of has been the case for the last while now, just has more talent. It just does. It has more talent, and it is very, very difficult to only choose 12. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. We've seen Jamal Murray still not have an all-star game. Someone like CJ McCollum really struggled to get into an all-star game. Mike Conley took until late in his career to get into an all-star game. Damian Lillard took a long time to break in to finally get in an all-star game. So it is a tough challenge to get into the Western Conference. So much so that I currently have my 5 starters picked, my 5 first guys off the bench. I don't know who the last 2 are going to be yet. I don't know. We're going to decide in live time here in the next 10 to 15 minutes, but it is a battle to figure out what you are going to do with those spots. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and get into the Western Conference starters. I think the starters debate is a little bit less of a debate in the West, aside from maybe the 5th spot. I think the reserves is where it starts to get really interesting. So obviously your MVP level performing guys are going to be here. So SGA on the 1-seeded OKC Thunder are here. Luka Doncic, maybe not quite the season that he would have been expecting from an actual impact level. I know the counting stats are there, but the impact isn't really there that you'd want in an ideal world, and the defense really hasn't taken a step up at all. But he certainly still deserves to be a starter, and I don't know that he's going to play at the All-Star game, but Nikola Jokic certainly deserves to be an all-star starter. Even with the missed time, his impact has just been too significant. He certainly deserves to be a starter here. The next guy who maybe isn't in the MVP conversation, but certainly deserves to be an all-star starter is Anthony Edwards. Anthony's been amazing this year. Great season, almost 29 points per game at this point. He's on career high efficiency. Ridiculous stuff from him. It just continues to be ridiculous. And the Timberwolves have been weird. They had a stretch where they were kind of only playing bad teams. Couldn't really tell if they were good or not. They were mostly losing their games against good teams, but they're 4th in the conference right now, 27-14. They're only 1 game back of the 2 seed. So they've been better. Anthony Edwards has been great through it all. And the Timberwolves and Edwards are certainly deserving of having an all-star starter. The 5th spot, I feel pretty comfortable in giving to Kevin Durant. There's a couple of other guys that you could consider here. I think Curry or Kawhi Leonard are probably the best options for that. I think Curry most likely over Kawhi just based on games played. Curry's been magnificent this season, so I think you could certainly argue that. But I'm giving this one to KD. And neither of these teams have been great this year. Houston certainly well below their expectations, and Golden State kind of where you expected, but it's still a Curry-led Warriors team. So you're not exactly getting peak production there from what you want for what they'd expect internally. But nonetheless, I think I'm going with KD. You could argue me over Curry. I think those two are very close, and I could listen to that argument either way. But I think KD would be my pick for the 5th starter spot. Houston being a slightly better team, helping his case a little bit here as well. But Curry's been amazing. You really can't go wrong picking either of these guys as far as I'm concerned. But let's move into the reserves. I think that's where things get really fun. So we know Steph Curry. That's one of the obvious ones. But let's go into the next 4 that I believe, in my opinion, should be there. I don't even know that all 4 of these guys are going to make it, but they should be. There's no doubt in my mind that they should be all-stars in my consideration for this season. I know I mentioned Kawhi Leonard earlier. Kawhi Leonard certainly deserves to be an all-star this year. He has really picked it up over the last month or so. I mean, the Clippers have been playing really, really good basketball over the last few weeks. They looked like they were down and out. They've now won 8 of their last 10. I think they've maybe won like 11 of their last 13, 12 of their last 14. It's something absurd. They looked down and out in terms of even getting into the play-in not that long ago. They are now tied with the 10 seed Memphis Grizzlies to be in the play-in. So they are well in on their way to be in the play-in. Never mind potentially even getting into the 7 or 8 seeds to have a home play-in and to only have to win 1 game instead of 2. And Kawhi Leonard is a significant part of that. He's averaging over 28 a night so far this season. He has really flipped a switch over the last month, and he looks like about as good as we've seen Kawhi on the offensive end. Defensively, he's still fine, but he's not, Depoy caliber, even to the point where he was in Toronto. Never mind what he was in San Antonio. But He's still been more than good enough on that offensive end to be able to get an all-star spot this season. The next three, starting with Lauri Markkanen. Utah have been bad, sure, although probably better than expectations until, the last couple weeks where they've kind of started to tank a little bit because they know they've been playing a little bit too well, and Markkanen's starting to get rested in a few games, but Markkanen still played more than enough games to be considered here, and he's been elite. The down year for him last year, there was talks of, how much value would we actually get back for him in a trade given his large salary? Does he have much value? He is averaging 27.9 points per game right now on very good above league average efficiency. You can't deny a guy averaging nearly 28 an all-star appearance, regardless of how bad his team is. I know Trae Young's been near those conversations before, but as a wing, especially, there's just no way, man. There's just no way. Lauri has been hooping. This is a career year for him, even better than his previous All-Star season, where he won Most Improved Player. Undoubtedly, Lauri Markkanen has to be an All-Star. And the fact that I have seen predictions where he is not listed as an All-Star is absurd to me. I know Utah are not great. How can you tell me that Lauri Markkanen is not one of the 12 best players in the Western Conference so far this season? You just can't. He's averaging nearly 28 a night. His three-point shooting is elite. His off-ball scoring is amazing. And he is doing it on 62% true shooting when league average is 58% on a team where his only other guy that is being respected offensively to a high degree is Keontae George. He is being honed in on, and it doesn't matter. It absolutely deservedly needs to be in the All-Star game this year for Lauri Markkanen. The next two that we have that are locks for me in the Western Conference bench, both are going to be first-time All-Stars. The one I alluded to earlier, he had not had one up until this season. If Jamal Murray somehow does not finally get an All-Star appearance this year, something is wrong. The Denver Nuggets are well deserving of having two All-Stars as they sit tied for the 2 seed, so there's no issues with that. He has been great playing through the massive amount of injuries that Denver have had this year, and playoff Murray has showed up in the regular season. He's averaging nearly 26 a night, 7.5 assists, both of which are comfortably career highs for him, and all on career high efficiency. 44.6% from three on nearly 8 attempts per game this year, which is insane. He is shooting, similar to Lauri Markkanen, 62% true shooting, which is a couple of percentage points higher than any of his previous career highs. Again, league average being 58%. So the overall efficiency has been amazing. Jamal Murray has showed up in the regular season this year. He wanted his All-Star appearance finally. I don't even know if I want to say he's deserved one in the past because he's missed time. He hasn't been as good in the regular season, but we know he can do this given what we've seen from him in the playoffs. He's shown it this year in the regular season. Jamal Murray, 100% deservedly an All-Star this year, getting his first one. The last one of my 5 locks on the Western Conference reserves, again, another first-time All-Star, and that is Portland's Deni Avdija. Again, Portland, they've been more than fine enough for me to comfortably give them an All-Star. Not that stopped me in the East because I gave Pascal Siakam one, but in the hyper-competitive Western Conference, maybe it would affect voters and some of the members of the media and coaches that will select these All-Stars a little bit more. It doesn't affect me anywhere near as much, and Deni Avdija is still certainly going to be an All-Star for me. I know his style of play annoys some people because it's drive, get to the rim, get to the rim, get to the rim, and he's averaging 9.9 free throw attempts per game. I don't care if it looks ugly. I care about production. I care about your impact on winning. I was a foul merchant in my day too, man. Like, that's the guys that are called ethical hoopers that people respect for not going to the line would be better scorers if they found out how to get to the line more. I'm never going to harp on a guy for that. Sure, if you want to say it's annoying to watch sometimes, okay, maybe. Although I don't even think Deni is one of those cases. I think he's just a very strong, aggressive slasher. But it's good basketball. It leads to winning. It leads to better offense. And Deni Avdija has done that. The three-point shooting has remained solid on higher volume this year. And even though he is the offensive engine on Portland after just being a role player for pretty much all of his career, he has taken it in stride. He looks like he is ready to be maybe not the number one guy on a great team, but certainly someone who can be the number one guy on a solid team this year in Portland, and is certainly deserved of an all-star appearance. So that is where we sit currently with SGA, Luka, Jokic, KD, and Anthony Edwards starting, and then Lauri Markkanen, Kawhi Leonard, Denny Avdija, Jamal Murray, and Steph Curry off of the bench. That leads me with only 2 spots left, which is heinous. There is much more than 12 guys in the Western Conference that deserve all-star appearances this year. I would still love to see them expand to 15. There's 15 teams in each conference. The all-star uh, game slots in terms of how many players get in each conference have not expanded in eons, and the league has expanded since then. I'd love to see more, but that's a debate for another day. Point being, I was debating on much more than 2 guys for these last 2 spots. James Harden has been playing at a great level. Devin Booker, statistically on the efficiency, maybe down a little bit this year, but he's still been very good. And his impact in other ways, defensively, playmaking wise, is probably at a career high level. And the Suns are certainly above expectations as a large part of that. Julius Randle, although he slipped a little bit recently, has been good, and the Timberwolves have been good enough for a second All Star. Rudy Gobert is another consideration as well. He's probably my DPOI favorite right now, and I would love to give him consideration there. Keontae George has been great offensively, but tough to give Utah 2 All Stars, although you'd consider it with Kawhi and Harden just because Harden's been that good. Trey Murphy, Pelican's been really bad, but Trey Murphy's been very good. Austin Reeves was very good, but he's only played 23 games. Wemby has been elite defensively as always, even if the counting stats are down. His impact and rim deterrence is just insane, but he's only played 26 games, and a lot of those are on a minutes restriction. LeBron has only played 21 games. I know fan voting will help him, although this year it still might not even be enough. I don't think he was top 5 in the last polling, so he might not actually get in this year unless the coaches give him a spot anyways. But he's only played 21 games, so it's really tough to get LeBron in at this point. Zion has been really good over the last month, but he's only played 27 games, and again, the Pelicans aren't great. Sengun has been solid again this year. He'd be looking to get back-to-back all-star appearances, but it'd be a second spot for Houston on a team that's been good but not great. And then De'Aaron Fox has been solid for the Spurs, but not amazing. And Amin Thompson is another guy you could consider for Houston as well when you consider how good his defensive impact is. So, I mean, these are, a list of what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I would consider 12 of those being deserving of an all-star appearance, arguably. LeBron being the one that probably isn't, just due to his missed time and missed production. But it's LeBron, and he, always makes an all-star team. So I had to put him on the list of initial considerations. But yeah, I mean, it was going to be a tough choice, even if it was a 15-man all-star team this year in the Western Conference. But only choosing 12 is brutal. So I narrowed it down to an initial list of 4. And we're going to have to decide who the last 2 that officially make the team are. We have James Harden. I know it's 2 for the Clippers, but they have been amazing recently, and Harden and Kawhi have both been amazing. I mean, they've still both been great. Devin Booker, it would be the 1 all-star for the Suns, and they are a 7 seed, so it's certainly valid that they could have an all-star. And although some of the efficiency is down, especially from 3, which is what hurts some of his argument, his overall production and impact has been very good this year. So Booker certainly heavily in consideration. Wembanyama, also in consideration. I know he'll probably get in as a starter just off of fan voting at this point, but I can't give him a starter spot based off of production, given he's only played 26 games. And although the defense is amazing, and if he had played enough, he would be my DPOI candidate. But otherwise, just from the amount of games he's missed plus the offensive production, I mean, the offensive production is certainly good, but it's not as elite as some of these other guys. And so that does limit some of his potential value there, but he's still heavily in consideration. And then Alperen Şengün is the one that I had as my 4th guy on my short list at this point before we narrow it down to 2. Very good year from Şengün. Again, not really significantly better than last year, especially at All-Star break time, but shooting the 3 a little bit better. Playmaking and overall assist numbers, at least from a counting stat perspective, is better. But also worth noting, Sengun has missed some time. He's only at 31 games. Wemby, of course, as we mentioned, is at 26. Someone like Devin Booker has been very available this year, I believe. Yeah, he's at 37. So he has played significantly more than both of those guys. And James Harden, again, also very available, as he typically is. Harden has just been very available throughout his career. And we are at a point where he has also played 37 games. So those are the final four. And this was a brutal selection to make. But the reality is Harden, as good as he is, and I'd love to give him a spot, would be a second All-Star on the 11 seed as we speak today, tied for the 10 seed. That's really tough to argue unless he is just so much better than the rest of the crew that he's competing against. He is just not. So Harden, I could not do. Sengun, I'd love to be able to argue back-to-back All-Star appearances for him. I don't think I can. Houston, still a 6 seed, but the further down the standings you are, it's more difficult to give you a second All-Star. And I don't know if Houston, especially compared to their expectations, is someone I can make that argument for, especially considering I don't know that Sengun deserves these spots more than Wembanyama or more than Devin Booker. So that leaves us with Victor Wembanyama and Devin Booker. And that is the last two guys on my Western Conference All-Star list. Wemby, at 26 games, I don't care, man. This is one of the best defensive players in league history. I don't care that the block numbers are down this year. Watch him play. Teams don't go to the rim on him. Most of these blocks, I mean, his block numbers are way down over the last, really since he came back post-injury, because teams just aren't driving on him when he's on the floor, man. They just aren't. It is float game. It is evade him. It is drive in and then kick out. They're just not testing it. They're just not, because you can't, because he is going to deter, alter, or block everything. He just is. So his block numbers being down is not indicative of his defensive impact being down. It is indicative of him being in the right positions at the right times, altering shots, and teams learning more and more after his first 2 seasons. You just can't go inside against this man. You just can't. I say man, he's a young adult, but he is a very grown man at the right age of 22, and he is just a defensive menace. Oh, and by the way, he's scoring 24 a night, grabbing 11 rebounds, and is shooting 38% from 3 and 52% from the field. I mean, the efficiency is absurd. I mean, he's shooting 62.5% true shooting, and when league average is 58%, whilst being one of the best defensive impacts of all time, the best defensive player by far this season. Wembanyama, even on the missed time, has to get in. And then Devin Booker. Devin Booker was the most difficult selection for me because I felt very polarized by Booker via a large part of the season. His scoring inside the arc has been solid, but the three-point shooting has been really bad. This is now back-to-back seasons for him where the three-point shot just really hasn't been there. So it's tough to see that from an offensive perspective from him, but the playmaking's been great. The defensive impact has been better. His impact on winning for this Suns team, a Suns team that is overachieving compared to most expectations, including mine, it's been great. It's been great. So certainly Devin Booker on the cusp. I don't know if he gets in, but I hope he does. And that rounds out my Western Conference All-Star team. So again, that is SGA, Luka, Jokic, KD, although argue me Curry for that KD spot, and I'm fine, and Anthony Edwards. And then off of the bench, it is Lauri Markkanen, it is Kawhi Leonard, Deni Avdija, first-time All-Star in Deni's case, and Jamal Murray, and then Victor Wembanyama and Devin Booker. And if I'm not mistaken, is that a first time for Wemby, or did he get in? He did get in last year, yeah. So that would be a second-time All-Star for Wembanyama, a first-time All-Star for Jamal Murray, and a first-time All-Star for Deni, and a second-time All-Star for Lauri Markkanen. And again, out east, we would have Tyrese Maxey, Jaylen Brown, Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, and Cade Cunningham. In the case of Cade, that would be his second All-Star game. So a little bit of fresh talent out there, especially when you move to the bench where you get Giannis, who of course was a regular, but Jalen Johnson in his first All-Star game, Scotty in his second, and MPJ in his first All-Star game. Then you get Pascal Siakam in his fourth, but Jalen Duren in his first, and Norm Powell in his first. So you would get Duren, Norman Powell, MPJ, and Jalen Johnson all in their first out east. In the West, you would get Jamal Murray and Denny in their first. So you would get 6 first-time All-Stars out of the 24 this year, which is nice to see. Nice bit of new talent getting into an All-Star game. You would then see Scotty Barnes get into his second. You would get Cade get into his second. You would see Lauri Markkanen get into his second. And so between first and second time All-Stars, you would have 9 guys of the 24 named this year. So a pretty significant bit of the All-Star teams being relatively new or uncommon sights at the All-Star game, with some of this young talent forcing their way into the All-Star game, and some of the later rising talents and guys like Norm Powell, Denny Avdia, Lauri Markkanen, which we love to see as well. I mean, there's been a lot of late blooming talent taking over the lead this year, which we always love to see. But that's where we're going to leave it. That is our, or I guess in this case, my 2026 NBA All-Star team picks. Do be sure, still in chat as we close things out here, or in the comments below afterwards, to let us know what your thoughts would be and your selections would be for this year's All-Star teams. Again, the rosters are going to come out on Monday. They say it is going to be the starters and the reserves all at once this year. So do stay tuned for that. And then we will be streaming on Tuesday to discuss those roster selections, some of the biggest omissions, as always. I'm sure there's going to be some. I'm sure some of the guys I selected are going to miss out. So we'll be back to discuss that on Tuesday. But with that being said, I appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing your support again, only on the one-man stream, but I'm sure we'll be back with more going forward again next week. Appreciate your guys' support. If you haven't already and you are still here, be sure to leave a like down below and hit that subscribe button. I appreciate it. You guys have a good weekend, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday.